Um, all right. Well, why don't I get us started? Um, so, I am, hey everybody, welcome. I'm Megan Murphy. I'm ONA's head of programs. Welcome to our last virtual session of 2025. We're super excited to have an amazing team from Northeastern University here to present some new research on reaching younger audiences. I'll turn it over to them in just a second. But thank you all for joining us. Just one quick plug. We are going to record the session. We're gonna make it available to everybody after the session is over, the video recording. So if you missed something in the notes or anything like that, just know that you'll be able to check back on it later. We'll make it available on ONA's website, journalist.org. And please make sure that you're subscribed to ONA's newsletter to keep track of future opportunities and discussions like this. And let us know what you'd like to learn about and what you'd like to hear about in 2026, because we love hosting these community conversations, highlighting expertise from the journalism industry and helping you know what's coming next in the work that you're doing. So on that note, we have a great presentation today, and I will stop talking. We're going to be diving into new research from Northeastern and the Reinventing Local TV News Project on reaching younger audiences and how we can do that better and more strategically in the new year and beyond. So to get us started, I'm going to turn things over to Mike Bodette, who's a professor at Northeastern and an investigative journalist. And thanks, Mike. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Megan, for having us. And hi, everyone. Welcome. We're so grateful to be here today to talk to you about our new research from Northeastern University. We recently released our survival guide for local TV news, which is making the case for news organizations to prioritize digital platforms like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, as ways to reach younger audiences. Our guide was developed inside local TV newsrooms, but we believe it can serve as a roadmap for any newsroom looking to develop or refine their social strategy. I want to thank the Online News Association for inviting us here today. This work wouldn't be possible without our industry partners, WCBS in New York, WLS in Chicago, and WCVB in Boston. Also our research partner, Smith Geiger Group, and the generous support of the Stanton Foundation. Quick introduction about who you're going to be hearing from today. As Megan mentioned, I'm Mike Bodette, journalism professor at Northeastern. I've worked in local TV news for more than 30 years, and I'm currently an investigative reporter at WCVB in Boston. From Northeastern, we have Lisa Tallhammer, our video innovation scholar who just completed her master's degree in media innovation and data communication. Congratulations to you, Lisa. And also Anna Campbell, our research team's project coordinator. Representing our industry partners is Margaret Cronin, the news director at WCVB in Boston. And finally, you'll be hearing from the fellows we embedded in newsrooms for a year of digital experimentation, Leanna Scicchetti from Boston, Angela Chen from Chicago, and Maggie Cole from New York. Everything we're going to be talking about today comes from our new report. So if you haven't downloaded it, scan the QR code on your screen to get a free copy. It's more than 30 pages filled with tons of useful information, links that you can check out all the work that the fellows have been doing. And it also includes our 10 takeaways to reinvent your video strategy. So how do we get here? Our digital experiment started back in 2023. Hard to believe it's been almost 3 years, when we hired 4 fellows, 3 digital content creators who you'll be hearing from today, and also an animator who worked with all the TV stations. We had the animator on because our earlier research showed that animation resonates with younger audiences and actually helps people remember the content of stories. I'm going to play part of a story right now that the fellows collaborated on to introduce you to them, but also to give you a sense of the type of content they produced.
4 cities
with just $40.
Who can have
The best day.
Hi, I'm Leanna. I live in Boston, and my friends are challenging each other to see who can have the best day in their city
With just $40.
You'll be surprised when you see my numbers later.
The challenge? All 4 of us fellows with the Reinventing Local TV News Project must have a coffee, do an activity, eat lunch, and cap off the day with a dessert and any other freebies we can find in our cities of Boston, Chicago, New York, and DC.
Not only was it fun for me, it was great for the community.
We're on a mission to help visitors and locals hack a fun day in our cities, sharing what we learned in the process.
I started my day on the wrong foot.
So, who had the best day? Let's dive in.
All right, just a preview there, but if you're curious about how you can actually live your best life on $40 a day in New York City, go check out the story. We got a link to it in our report. All right, I want to give you a brief overview of our national survey of Gen Zers and millennials. We surveyed more than 1,000 18 to 34-year-olds, and this is how young people are consuming content. They're consuming local news on their phones. My Northeastern journalism students, I think of them as my built-in reality check when I'm in the classroom. And so here's what they had to say when I asked them about their thoughts on local TV news.
Local TV news has been a little bit more stagnant.
TV news is struggling to keep up with the fast-paced environment that younger people are looking for.
People want some entertainment from the news that they're consuming.
YouTube, TikTok, Instagram.
We just want to have it on our phones immediately. Like, I want it served to me on a platter.
So we know young people want news content on their phones, and according to my student Heidi there, they also want it served on a platter. But what are the top digital platforms? You can see it right there. Number one, YouTube, followed by Instagram and TikTok. Interesting to me, newsrooms focus so much on their websites, but look where that falls on the list for 18 to 34-year-olds, right down at the bottom there. We're going to be hitting on all these topics today on your screen. So if there's something on those topics that you are particularly interested in, please drop it in the chat and we'll try to focus even more on that. If you have any questions for any of our panelists throughout this, drop them in the chat. They're going to be monitoring the chat. And we're also going to have some time for a Q&A at the end. But right now I want to hand it over to one of the authors of our report, our video innovation scholar, Lisa Tallhammer.
Hey everyone, I got wrapped up in the chat. We're really excited to have you here. And so what we want to start with talking about are some of the content strategies that we found through our research were really supported telling a strong story on video that's designed for social platforms. Because we know you may already be producing video, but maybe feeling like it's not reaching as many viewers as you'd like. And so here are some of the strategies we identified. We're going to start off with talking about story structure. A real significant difference in video designed for social media versus other platforms is the structure that you need to take. This graphic is based on one developed by Joey Ferguson from the Washington Post's social video team. The team spoke at our conference that we ran at Northeastern back in March. And as you see, this is a 3-act structure. So 3 distinct points in truly a 1 to 1.5 minute video. The hook is going to be one of the most important parts of your video because you need to convince people to stop scrolling. And you need to build in payoffs along the way to continue earning the interest of your viewers. Something that all of us with TV backgrounds think about is sometimes or if you've got a print background, you might start with an anecdotal lead. You might drop people in with a story of a person you're going to follow along with. And that was a great format for television and for traditional digital videos, but we're finding it's not working as well for social videos where you kind of need to punch people in the face to get them to pay attention in the first place. And so we think that this structure and adapting the structure of the stories you're already telling is a really great place to start on adapting your videos for social. Our next slide, we're going to look at one of the videos that was produced during the course of our fellowship by our fellows Angela and Gabby, along with Angela's colleagues at WLS in Chicago. This was the highest performing video in our testing. On the side, you can see how well rated it was by our survey participants. And this video exemplifies a few of the strategies that we identified for creating successful social media videos, and we'll break down exactly what those strategies were right after we watch this.
It's tornado season, but don't panic. I'm ABC7 meteorologist Cheryl Scott, here to tell you about 5 safety tips to prepare you for a tornado. First, build an emergency kit, non-perishable food, water, a flashlight, and extra batteries, and a first aid kit. Number 2, know what the alerts mean. A tornado watch means there's a chance of a tornado forming, so be on alert and ready to take action. A tornado warning means you should be heading to your shelter as soon as you can. And if a tornado is imminent, number 3, make sure you get to a safe place such as a storm cellar or basement. Number 4, protect your head and feet. According to the CDC, falling and flying debris causes the most deaths and injuries during a tornado. Have appropriate headgear and shoes ready. And lastly, stay tuned on ABC7 for the latest updates and warnings on severe weather conditions.
So these are the big 5 strategies we laid out in our report for creating really strong, really successful digital content. And that video that we just watched shows off 3 of those strategies. First of all, the runtime on that video, 52 seconds. So it's right in the ballpark of what our testing indicated was an ideal length for videos, which is 50 seconds plus or minus 10. Secondly, it prominently featured animation. We found in prior iterations of our research that animation really benefits videos that are designed for social and designed to reach millennial and Gen Z audiences. We found that animation makes stories more memorable for viewers, in addition to helping capture and direct their attention. Also, like, we know people are watching these videos with no sound at times, so you've got these strong visuals that work even if someone doesn't have the audio on. Third, story choice and tone. The people in our survey said topics they wanted to see stories about were breaking news and weather. Those were the most desired topics. The third most desired attribute for videos on social media was, quote, a fun and informal tone, which, like, this video also has. It feels more like you're watching FaceTime with a friend than a traditional TV stand-up. And so we think that that tone is really valuable in creating a video that feels like the right fit for your phone versus for your television. Number 4 on our list refers to the value of authenticity, taking viewers behind the scenes, and producing process journalism. Again, the video is shot on a set, but maybe doesn't feel quite as, again, formal as you might see something in a newscast. And then number 5 is about all the other pieces that go into a video designed for digital platforms. We need to bring the same care to our video titles, thumbnails, metadata, and captions as we do for choosing images for our website or SEO. All of those pieces are really important for these social videos and can make or break how much reach your social videos get. So as we transition to, I think Mike's up next. We'd love to hear in the chat, which digital content strategy do you think you could implement today? We know it can feel overwhelming at times to think about rehauling your whole strategy all at once. But we're hoping that one of these strategies is something that you could start to implement today, tomorrow, in the new year, and just start to chip away at evolving the way you're telling stories. Mike?
Thanks, Lisa. And we'll get back to those responses that you have on there, because I'm really curious to see what people are interested in tackling in the newsroom. I know I'm still chipping away at that list myself at WCVB. And the number 5 is where I'm thinking I want to do more thinking about thumbnails and the packaging and really just trying to, like, set the right tone for these stories. So I just want to talk a little bit about the digital content creator role that we're urging newsrooms to hire. We all have digital teams, right? But do you have someone in the field producing vertical videos specifically for TikTok and Instagram? If the answer is no, you're really missing out on an opportunity to reach younger audiences where they are. So what exactly is a day like for a digital content creator? Our Boston fellow, Leanna, who you're going to hear from in a bit, produced this vertical video to help explain. So let's take a look.
What exactly does a digital journalist do on a daily basis?
This is the other side of the iconic Boston Marathon finish line.
Well, for me, it could mean just about anything.
So here's a picture of the tank after the explosion.
So what might a typical work week look like? Well, most days start with a morning editorial meeting to see what stories the team is working on. But I also might head out of the building to shoot a story. And I'm a one-woman band, so that means I'm running the camera, setting up lighting, audio, and simultaneously doing the interviews. I carry everything around in this little wagon, and you'll usually see me filming with both my camera and my phone. Sometimes the weather is great, sometimes it's not, and sometimes I'm really getting my steps in. There's Paul Revere. When I get back to the newsroom, I'll start writing and editing. I'll usually edit multiple versions of the story, one for our website, one for social media, and a version that will go on air. And when I make this face, I'm working on a headline. So yes, I have to write the accompanying web article and any push alerts so I can send the story right to your phone. Now, if I'm fronting a story, which means going live, I'll coordinate with the show producer to make sure all the elements are good to go. And then I do my hair and makeup, I mic up, and go for it. But a lot of the time, I am at my computer researching, setting up stories, tracking analytics. We're working quickly to post content on breaking news and weather. And honestly, one of my favorite things is getting to produce content with my colleagues. We shoot lots of behind-the-scenes content and explainers. Last but not least, while it doesn't happen every week, I have a blast working with interns and going to meet with local students who have great insights on how their generation is consuming news content. So there you have it. Some days are a little wild, some days are pretty tame. And bottom line is, I love my job. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Just let me know in the comments. Until next time.
All right, so this position, we're not saying it's a magic bullet for capturing younger audiences. I think if we all knew the answer, we'd all be doing it, right? But I think it's definitely a start, and we did see some really big wins across all the stations, millions of views. We got some viral hits, and we even had an Edward R. Murrow Award for Excellence in Video Innovation at WCVB, which is a great transition to introduce Margaret Cronin, one of our industry partners, the news director at WCVB in Boston. And Margaret, really appreciate you joining us. You ended up hiring Leanna after her fellowship ended. So I'm wondering, how difficult was it when she arrived for the fellowship to integrate her into this new role, into your newsroom, and to get buy-in from everyone in the newsroom?
I am going to answer that in 20 seconds. I just need 20 seconds. Sorry.
No problem. This is what we've got, some breaking news actually going on here in the Boston area today, national news as well. So we appreciate what Margaret is dealing with at the moment. But I know I can say, Leanna, why don't we have you jump in here for a second and just tell us how you're transitioning into this permanent role in the newsroom. Pretty exciting that you got hired.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back. All right.
And I will go now because I might have to pop out. I am so sorry, guys, but I think everyone on this call likely knows what's happening with the Brown situation. And there's a breaking piece of it happening as we speak. Let's just all say prayers that they catch him today. Okay. Hi. The question was about Leanna.
Yes. And integrating her into this new role. How difficult was that to do that and to get buy-in from everyone?
I think both the integration and the buy-in were fairly easy for multiple reasons. Number one, I think everyone in this newsroom, even when we started this, if you said it, it's like, this is Leanna's second, this is the end of the, so 2 years ago, this is the end of the second year, the end of your first year, Leanna, as a full-time WCVB employee versus part of this fellowship. So I think 2 years ago, people knew that, now more than ever, we've been saying it for years, but now more than ever, digital content is just such a priority. And to have extra help in that world was appreciated. And when I shared the focus, it was kind of this excitement of, okay, what is this all going to look like? And it didn't hurt us that if you met Leanna in person, you will know why I'm going to embarrass her right now. But she is one of the most energetic, organized go-getters I've ever worked with. And I've been in the business a long time at a lot of stations. And she just gets it done. And not only for herself, but for everyone else. She's a great producer, reporter, and coach. And so just within like a month, people understood what she was going to be producing on her own and helping us with. And then within 6 months, she was just this great coach who was energizing everybody. And so, and I always say success breeds more success. And so people who got what Leanna was doing, who were already very digitally active, would buddy up with her, do more, do really cool stuff. And then like one of our anchors would say, I want to work with Leanna on something, or a meteorologist or a reporter. And so then the evolution started happening and we started doing more and more with Leanna's help. And then earlier this year, we really hit hard with digital dominance sessions and not only made it clear why we must be doing this, but how to do it with Leanna, doing some coaching sessions for more as became clear that we had to train as many people as possible on the specifics of vertical videos. But just let's make it clear, it's not just about vertical videos. It's about obviously all digital content. But the vertical videos are huge. And I do want to point out, so I don't forget because of the madness happening, that it's wonderful to have the narrators, the reporters tell the stories. It's also often, pure gold if something happens, especially in breaking news situations on air or on streaming, that becomes a perfect moment for a vertical video. The case in point would be, I will tell you, because I don't have the stats in front of me right now, but a couple of things that happened with Brown became really great successes automatically that were not reporter driven. They were just, story with sound. UMass Boston had a scare in the summer. Thankfully, it was not a gunman, but there were reports of a gunman on campus. And it turned into a really horrifying event when people thought he was there. And our helicopter was up, and we were owning that coverage. And literally, I was in my office watching us, and this young woman, I'm probably around 20 years old, a student, one of our reporters was interviewing her, and she had just this bite that even all across the country, you may have seen the bite. She started by saying, "I am pissed," that command, and then the rest was just, she was fascinating. And it was one of those where I don't know, Leanna, if I grabbed you, I think, I just kind of went out and said, guys, we got to get that going. So Leanna then teamed up with one of our other digital people and just quickly turned it around. Within 24 hours, that vertical video that started with this really incredible bite landed us at the 2.8 million mark on TikTok. So I know it's kind of a long answer, but
yeah. But Margaret, anyone here knows they need to be in digital, but the question we always get is about monetization. Are you making money? Is this a smart business decision for a newsroom?
It is an absolutely smart decision. It's a must. If you're not in this game, then I don't know what you're thinking. What it comes down to, everybody, and I know probably a lot of you are on the content side, but I obviously play in both worlds, although years ago, you'd never hear news and sales saying things like that, playing with them. But ultimately, obviously, this is our product on the news side, but we need to make sure that it becomes something that helps us be profitable. And what I would say is, on our platforms, like our web, our app, YouTube, we are making the money there and doing very well. Right now the social media buys us, and obviously that's where the vertical videos especially are playing. What that buys us is brand awareness and loyalty, and that will bring people to all of our products. If they see us and kind of like our content or engaged by our content, they will start engaging with us, our hope, of course, and our push on all of our platforms, including linear. I mean, you never know when something's going to happen when people need to crowd around, a television. But our website, our app, they're going to sign up. We've seen a lot of great growth on that side of the business, and that's where we're really, really selling. And it's all about impressions across the board, from linear impressions to YouTube, to our web and app, and now to social. So.
Excellent. All right, Margaret, we're going to let you go deal with breaking news. I'll be joining you soon enough on that.
I really appreciate it, guys. And I am so sorry. I wanted to stay for the whole thing, but this is pretty big. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I want to say very big thanks to Mike, who pitched me on this fellowship. I was thrilled that we could move forward with it. And we are just very blessed to have Leanna as part of the team. And I was also very fortunate to meet the other fellows, and they all are rock stars. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Margaret. And this is a great time to hear from Leanna herself, WCVB's digital content creator. So Leanna, let me throw it over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. And I don't just say I love my job when the bosses are on the call. I really do love my job, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I'm going to share a video with you that I produced during my fellowship that I think hits on a couple of things that you'll see in the report. This is one of the recommendations we make is to work with, if you're trying to reach Gen Z audiences, work with Gen Z, your interns, your local students, because they have such great insight onto not only how they consume content, but what they consume. So this story was bred out of a collaboration with some of Mike's students who pitched this story idea for me to execute. It also included the collaboration of our friend and animator, Gabby. This I think also hits on the production and tone approach that we recommend in the report. And lastly, it also solicited a lot of engagement. And I think one thing that's exciting about this content in this space is the opportunity for a good and productive feedback loop with our community, building an online community that identifies with and feels related to our brand on these social spaces. So, and then afterwards, we'll kind of debrief a little bit, and I'll share some ideas and tips for production. And Nikki was asking about, hey, if you're in a small newsroom and you're strapped for resources, what you can do, and we'll go over that in just a second. But for now, we'll play the video.
For a while now, Boston's nightlife has had this reputation that it's kind of uncool, especially compared with other big cities like New York or Chicago or Austin.
Yeah, I don't know. Philly's better.
2 a.m. is basically where everywhere closes.
A club like the one in Denver would have been really fun, but it's okay.
Even City Hall is talking about Boston's nightlife.
Boston is a fun city. I don't care what some people are saying, but we don't give that fun an outlet often.
Just last year, the city hired its first director of nightlife economy, aka the Night Czar.
There's no place like Boston.
Korean Reynolds is correct, and it's because of its uniqueness that Boston has unique barriers to growing its nightlife. Chris Sweeto, bar manager at The Point, has a few points to make.
You laughing at that?
Sweeto has been working the night shift in Boston since about 2017 and says the city has gone through some big changes in that time, not the least of which was a global pandemic.
You know, there's a lot of people who are in the office a lot less, so that definitely changes, our 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock crowd.
And Sweeto says many of those who do go out aren't throwing them back like they used to.
The younger generation, the freshly 21 up to about 30, are much more into the craft cocktail scene rather than doing the vodka Red Bulls all night.
And yeah, all right, so maybe that's not like the worst thing, but Sweeto says they are missing a tool he believes could get more people in the door. That's because Massachusetts law bans happy hour. Barriers still remain high for selling liquor any time of the day. Liquor licenses in Boston are limited, just around 1,000 total. And if you can get one, you'll be paying for it.
Prior to the pandemic, they were going for about 450,000. Since then, they're going for about 600,000.
The law requires alcohol service to end by 2 a.m., and that's the cutoff for live entertainment too. But your ride may get cut off even sooner. In Boston, most public transportation only runs until just after midnight. Austin, by comparison, will tow you around till about 3 a.m. And in Chicago and New York, there are public transportation options 24/7.
I live in Lowell, so there's no transit really.
For these reasons and more, the city established the Office of Nightlife Economy to revitalize the industry.
In year 2, it's a lot more action, I'd like to say.
In the last year, Reynolds says there's been a lot of community listening, and the city passed a home rule petition to expand the number of liquor licenses, putting their request in the hands of state legislators. That's who would also control any changes to the happy hour ban. But Reynolds' office just announced $250,000 in ARPA funding for nightlife revitalization. It'll create grants for events focused on accessibility, cultural expression, intergenerational gathering, alcohol-free socializing, weekday activities, and hangouts for the under 20 crowd.
We want to work with folks throughout the city to think through what do those spaces look like? How can we help create those spaces?
Of course, it's not all bad out there.
There's a lot of cool things in Boston.
We're literally partying in historical areas. These are where your founding fathers went.
And you're encouraged to share your input to help make Boston's nightlife diverse, robust, and cool.
So the one thing that doesn't follow that is recommended in our report is it's a little bit longer than the recommendation. I do think that my production skills, hopefully, I think have gotten a little bit better over time as well. Although I still stand by, if the content is good and solid, the audiences will stick around. And somebody had a couple of great questions in the chat about production. So everything that I do is also being produced for horizontal versions, whether it be online, on our website, YouTube, or for use on air. So whenever I'm shooting a story, I'm very mindful about the elements and how I'm going to be able to repurpose them onto that social space. And then for those of you who are on the crime beat, as the question asked, or have to take a more serious caution or tone with our videos, 100%. I work with Mike and our IA team all the time, and we definitely definitely take tone into consideration. I think serious stories, and I think what we're proving in this report, capital J journalism can absolutely be done in these spaces. Music, being really mindful about music choices, should you choose to use it, are really important. I think one of the ways you can still tell these serious, important stories are by focusing on your pacing and obviously just optimizing your content for these vertical platforms. So things you can come out of this webinar and do today, perhaps to make your production really, really simple. If you've shot, a video interview, for example, can you cut down that raw interview and just use some of that video with B-roll? I'm working on breaking news stories hand in hand with our digital content manager, Phil, all the time. And sometimes you just really quickly put together some sound with some strong visuals. Can you show viewers a behind the scenes process? We do that a lot as well. We think increasing our transparency can increase the trust that people have with us. And some game I like to play with myself sometimes is playing Jeopardy. I start my video with that hook, a question that my story answers. And moving on to the next slide, some tips for delivery and production that we have found in making these videos and as recommended in our report. Main thing, if I can emphasize anything, is capital A, authenticity. Gen Z finds that very important. Adding subtitles and graphics that are optimized for vertical. Subtitles obviously being good for accessibility purposes, but also we know a lot of people watch these videos without the sound. They may be on the bus or at work, and they still want to be able to consume your content. And I think Lisa mentioned this earlier. Your talent doesn't need to be behind a desk necessarily, doesn't have to be formal in the way that it is on linear television. And again, reiterating that the ideal length is between 40 seconds to a minute.
All right. Thank you, Leanna. And the audience is such a key part of any digital strategy, and someone who knows that better than anyone is our project coordinator, Anna Campbell, and she's also one of the authors of the report. So I'm going to throw it over to Anna.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for being here. And thanks for being so engaged in the chat. It's really cool to see where everyone's calling in from and seeing all these questions pop up. So hopefully we address them all. If we don't, flag us down. We are gonna hopefully have some time for Q&A, meaningful Q&A with everyone at the end. I wanna give you a quick TLDR because as we have mentioned many times, we have this beautiful report. We hope you will download it. It is free. It goes really in depth into everything that we did, and it has a lot of fancy charts you can look at and some mnemonics. You can even little, if you feel like printing it out, we've got little cutouts you can paste on your wall. So if you want to know more, I imagine that everyone here, there's quite a few people here, and I imagine everyone here is at a different place with their metrics. Can you just drop like a 1 in the chat if it's some part of your role or your job to look at performance metrics of content, like at all? I'm curious. Yeah, we've got a few folks. And maybe put a 2 if you're like, there's another team that does that and that is not related to what I do. Or maybe you communicate with that team, but you're not directly looking at the numbers yourself. Okay, awesome. And put a 3 in the chat if you are looking at some numbers, but you're feeling lost. They're not meaningful to make decisions based off of. I'm curious where everyone's at. So everyone's at a different point in this journey, and that is totally understandable and expected. There are a ton of platforms out there, even though we actually originally started this phase of the project looking at like all digital content for news, which includes website, includes streaming apps, includes OTT partnerships, and quite a lot of things that are not social media. We ended up sort of corralling it into social media because that's what we were hearing from people most often, is that is how they get their information primarily. But even within the world of social media, we have all these different platforms, and every different platform has different options for metrics for what to look at. So I'm going to go into a couple of those options in just a minute, but the TLDR, if you take nothing away from this, is that metrics are now a non-negotiable part of content creation. So if you are in a position where you're creating content and you are not looking at your performance data, times have changed. You have to be able to be at least a little bit literate in understanding how things are coming across, how many views you're getting, what people are saying, and just to start to make that into a two-way conversation if it hasn't been for you so far. And if you're more at the leadership level, investing in tools, analytics tools for your newsroom, for your producers, for your content creators to understand how their content is performing with different audiences is super, super crucial. And these look a little bit different in the digital space than they traditionally have in the linear space. So metrics are, for better or for worse, a non-negotiable part of content creation. But what's awesome is that all of a sudden we have all these windows to hear what our audience is thinking in real time, which is really amazing. If you're totally lost and you don't know where to start, any metrics are better than no metrics. So just choosing one platform and one metric to look at can be a sort of entry level friendly way to start reading your numbers and start integrating that into your strategy. So if you don't know where to start, I recommend YouTube. They have the most thorough, in-depth numbers through YouTube Studio. So with any of these platforms, whether you're working with something that your outlet already has set up or setting up a new platform, make sure that you're using an organizational or a business account versus a personal account. Most of these platforms have the option to choose between the two, and the organizational or business account is going to have far more options for metrics and pulling your performance data. YouTube has the most thorough, in my experience, metrics available, but they all, to some extent, have dashboards that you can look at and check out how your content is doing. But just picking one, how many people are seeing this? Views, super simple. What's our engagement rate? How many of the people who are seeing it, how many are deciding to share it or like it or leave a comment? That's another good one. Just pick one on one platform and check in with it weekly, monthly, after you publish a piece of content. Initially, each platform has sort of a different life cycle of the content. And of course, it'll depend on your story too. If you're covering breaking news or doing something more evergreen. One thing that we did in structuring this research is we looked back in 24-hour window, 7-day window, and a 30-day window. So picking one of those, the one that seems the most relevant for that platform and that story idea, the 24 hours is a great place to start, since that's kind of the news cycle that might align well with your TV news cycle, as well as like if you publish something on YouTube or TikTok, 24 hours later, you'll probably have meaningful data about how it's doing. 30 days would be something that you might hope that somebody else picks up and shares and will still be somewhat relevant within that 30-day window. Can you hop back to the last slide real quick? Just make sure I got all my TLDR. Oh yeah, the last one is qualitative metrics. So the numbers can't tell you everything. Of course, there are going to be qualitative things involved. So this is especially true inside the newsroom if these are some new, you're picking up some new strategies, new techniques, new workflows. If you have a new fellow or an intern or somebody that you're working with, how a story felt to produce in the newsroom is a huge one. People tend to keep doing things that are workable and fun. So if you're integrating new strategies for the first time in your team dynamic, qualitative metrics about how the process went is really important. How did your subjects or interviewees react to the story? Did you get any feedback after the story about impact that it's had in their communities? And we have a couple of examples of that in our report as well. And then, of course, not just how many comments did something get. Are you just putting out sensational clickbait onto the internet? But what are people saying? Is your piece like inciting meaningful, maybe inciting is the wrong word there, inviting, how about that? Inviting meaningful dialogue, and invite, don't incite. That's my motto for this. Because sometimes, of course, you'll see really impressive numbers just because a topic is super controversial and everybody wants to fight about it in the comments, and that's not necessarily the most productive way to use your engagement metrics, right? We want to make sure that we're inviting substantive dialogue, and that might be something that's a little bit harder to measure in numbers, but you can understand that as a qualitative metric that you can start to track. So, okay, we can move on into that warmer graphic. We have a cute little mnemonic for you if you're lost in the sauce of the numbers. The goal is, are we getting warmer? If you remember that game from when you were little, warmer, colder. The idea is that you're moving towards something, and that something is alignment with your audience, telling them not always telling them what they want to hear, but covering the topics that they are actively interested in and building community. And the overarching impetus of this project is to actually strengthen democracy by making young people feel more engaged with their communities. So are we getting warmer? Are we getting closer to that in any meaningful way? That is an acronym that stands for a lot of different dimensions that you can look at through those dashboards that I mentioned, and also through third-party tools. I'm just going to really quickly cover 3 of these, and then I will just hope that you download this report and dive deeply into them, pick your one metric and run with it. I'm actually going to start at the end because packaging is something that we've talked about a lot. And this is one of the biggest differences, I believe, between linear TV and the digital realm is that packaging. I'm going to start with CTR. This is the last one. A click-through rate is going to tell you how good your packaging is, how good your thumbnail, your title, and your metadata, your SEO. If you work in the web realm at all, you're familiar with some of these terms. How enticing is that to people as they're scrolling through their feed at 1,000,000 miles an hour? Does something stand out to them? And this is just as important as the story that you're telling in the digital realm. This isn't a nice to have. This isn't a take a random screenshot from the video and put it up. If that's what you do, then you are burying what's probably really awesome reporting and storytelling behind a gray wall that nobody is going to see. So CTR can measure your packaging strength. And then, okay, you could, sorry, these are a little out of order. You can go back to the previous one. Retention or watch time is then going to measure how well your audience feels that you're delivering on that packaging. So were they misled by a really flashy thumbnail and they're like, that's not what the story is about at all, right? You obviously want them not only to click into your story or to stick around or pause their scroll to watch it, but you also want them to stick around. So how long they stuck around of the people who clicked into it, how many stuck around, those can be measured in watch time and retention. And the last one, you can hop back over to number 2, is engagement rate. So talking, as we talked about before, about those comments, likes, shares of the people who did stick around to watch it. Is that inviting dialogue? Is it inspiring people? Oh, I know someone who would love this. I know someone who this is relevant to. And this is also particularly helpful in local news where you hope that your audience is local to your area. But of course, the internet, as Maggie, I'm going to quote Maggie here, who had a fantastic way of phrasing this. Maggie said, local is just a word when the internet is involved. The internet truly spans the globe, right? So if you reach someone who is not in that local area, but they see it and they think it's a great story, they will share it with somebody they know who does live in that local area. And that's something you can measure. It's like, are we creating something that is being broadcast so far beyond our local area, but the storytelling is so strong that we're actually growing our local audience via people who live anywhere else in the country or in the world. And there's some really fun examples of that too. So I'll wrap it up there, but look at your numbers. They can tell you a lot. And even if this is all super overwhelming, just one person checking analytics for 20 minutes a week can tell you so much about what your audience wants to hear. Being active in the comments, asking questions with your stories, not just telling all the time, but inviting people to tell you what they want to hear about, and inviting community perspectives into your reporting is a really important part of news, as you all probably know, but we have more opportunities to do that more easily than ever before. And it's a really exciting time to be in journalism. And I hope that you all will pick a number you like, run with it, and start to inform your content production with performance metrics.
Awesome. Anna,
Yeah.
thank you so much. That was excellent. And of course, the report has more to dig into, so definitely download that. I'm going to go through these next few slides quickly, but I did just want to plug our reInvent Video Innovation Summit that we had earlier this year. All of our keynotes, panels, workshops are online. Really amazing people. I'm just going to play like 10 seconds of this so you get a little sense of who was there.
Raise your hand if you work for a legacy media institution or have worked for a legacy media institution where somebody in the room has said, we need to go after a younger audience.
All ages, and especially young adults, younger people want information. The way they're getting information has changed.
You can't create a news product for young people without a social presence.
So for me, I really make an effort to involve my social media as much as possible with my storytelling.
At the end of the day, like, people are going to social to be entertained. So entertain them.
You know, we every day are challenged to do things completely different, think outside of the box, be bold, be different.
You'd be surprised how many fascinating stories just the people you walk by every single day have to tell. And you would never know it if you didn't ask them.
I think pushing the
And the Matt Shearer panel is excellent. So I highly recommend that. Washington Post TikTok team, Maribel Lopez from PBS Digital Studios, so much good content. So please check it out. I do just want to say, you know, people ask us, like, how do we do this? You know, newsrooms are cutting costs. You know, think about reallocating resources and really prioritizing digital, and, you know, maybe taking a producer or a reporter who's already in your newsroom and specifically giving them days when they can go out into the field and produce content for digital platforms. I think that's a great way to get in the game, but it's also really a way to ease burnout from newsrooms and give your reporters and producers, you know, something that they're excited about doing. All right, I'm thrilled to have three of our fellows here. I want to jump right into it and ask Maggie, you know, you had such a time at WCBS in New York, and I'm wondering, what do you think you added to WCBS in the newsroom that it didn't have before?
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Mike. I think I thought about this question, and I think that what adding a digital content creator really does as a whole, and what I was able to do is create a bridge between our audience and the newsroom. You know, I'm seeing things on social media and going to our directors and saying, we need to talk about this. And they're coming to me and saying, we need to post about this. And so there's an open communication in that way. And I'm the person who's able to answer those questions. So there's also a trust built between you and your audience. And I think that really, as basic or boiled down as that sounds, that really what my role became is that communication between it and saying, you know, is there going to be a winter storm? What's happening this week? Where's the winter storm? Where's the winter storm? What's going on? And then when that's our entire comments, you know that, yes, people are getting that content online, but they're not getting it in the way that they need it in the fast-paced, basically exactly that video that Angela had of exactly what you need. You know, your 15-minute weather every day isn't enough. And so, yeah, I think I was that bridge. That's what I was.
Absolutely. And Angela Chen from WLS in Chicago spent a year embedded in that newsroom. Anna just talked about metrics, Angela. I'm wondering, like, how did those performance metrics that you were tracking impact the stories that you were covering and how you covered them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first off, I'm so happy to see everyone that I haven't seen in a while. It's always good seeing you guys. Yeah, I think in terms of performance metrics impacting the content that I was telling, I will say, like, first and foremost, just because something like doesn't perform well doesn't necessarily mean that story shouldn't be told. Maybe there's another way to tell it. And so I think in that aspect, it definitely informed maybe like how I was structuring my stories. Kind of going back to what was presented earlier of like having that hook, having that question, having gold nuggets throughout that story. And is there any ways that I can shorten it, make it faster, deliver it in a way that's a bit more engaging than how it would maybe be traditionally delivered in your standard newsroom?
Yeah. Maggie, how did you identify story topics? Because you always seem to be coming up with good ones that resonated with the younger audience.
I think it's very similar to the answer that I already had, which is being engaged with what's going on social media. Part of my job, and as dramatic as it sounds, is just being online, is just being constantly online and tuning your algorithm kind of to the community that you're in, to the localness. I moved from New York to Philadelphia, and I feel like I spent a month or so basically tuning my algorithm to be able to get the content that I want so that I know what we need to be able to put out. So it's constantly being on your phone. I think it is a really big answer, but it's knowing what your audience wants.
Absolutely. Leanna, I want to hit you with the last question for the fellows. In terms of like, what skills do you need for this role? You're, as you described it, a one-woman band. So give us a sense of what you need to be able to do this role.
I think you need flexibility. I think in the same way that Maggie's talking about being a bridge between your audience and your managers, being a bridge in your newsroom, somebody who can understand your brand as well. I think that's important. I think sometimes people get nervous that, okay, we're going to put this person and they're going to be in charge of our TikTok and, oh God, what are they going to post? I think it's important that you walk into a place and you really understand the brand so that your content, even if it doesn't look like the 6 o'clock news, it has all the rigor and tenacity and ethical, drive that your 6 o'clock news does. So being able to, paying attention to the industry, understanding what the needs of your newsroom are, approaching it with the sincerest part of your heart that is like, this is a service to the community at its most basic, understanding your brand and being willing to collaborate and meet people where they are, especially working with other people in our newsroom who maybe this is the first time they've ever been on TikTok or they're approaching this landscape, meeting them where they are and providing everybody that you're working with an entry point to step into this world and feel like they're giving and getting something out of it. And then as far as my technical skills, shooting, writing, and editing, I edit mostly on Premiere, but I do some phone editing as well. And I think just being able to adapt. I have an MMJ background. I was very used to kind of running and gunning, as it were, and being able to pivot in the middle of the day. And I don't think that is any deviation for a content creator like this role.
Awesome. I want to thank all of our fellows, their creativity and energy. You four, actually, Gabby's not here, but all of you just really made this project a success. So thank you for everything that you brought to the role. We appreciate it. I want to open it up for questions. And I know Lisa and Anna, you've been monitoring the chat. So if there's anything that you want to surface for questions, but we just want to know, like, what are you planning to do to reinvent? What questions do you have about going digital and really prioritizing digital in your newsrooms?
As we see if other stuff comes in, Mike, I think some of the biggest themes I felt like I saw were we're all working with smaller staffs than we'd like to have for the work we'd like to do. And then also knowing like who our audience has been historically, generally like folks over 40, and like how do we balance potentially talking to both those audiences? A younger audience and a legacy audience. We've had some great conversation in the chat, but I don't know if there's anything anyone else wanted to add about getting started, especially trying to manage like yet another platform with no more people.
Yeah, I mean, I think the resource thing is always a challenge. The one thing I did want to just reiterate, it was on one of the slides, but I didn't talk about it, was the idea of like partnering with colleges and universities to either get interns in there or recent grads. One of our big takeaways from when we started this research back in 2017 is if you want to connect with younger audiences, you need to hire younger audiences. You need Gen Z in your newsroom. And so I think that's a way, resource-wise, tapping into interns is a good way, but even hiring these people, they have the ideas, they have the social media savvy, and I think that's really important.
Well, and then once they're in, you have to listen. Mike.
Absolutely. Give them a seat at the table.
About the small newsroom, something I just wanted to say, I have moved from WCBS, which was a much larger newsroom, to WPHL in Philadelphia, where we had about 15 people on the digital desk at CBS, and we have 2 on the digital desk at PHL. So it has been an insane scaled down just team wise. And the way that we have made it work, which I said this in the chat, is just leaning into the niches that we know that we have. Philadelphia is such a strong community. So we've been creating a lot of content around Philadelphia Eagles and really leaning into Go Birds, Pride in general. And that has been getting attention in ways that we haven't been getting. And so we get those notifications of people followed you from this reel. And that new metric on Instagram has been amazing when it tells you that they follow you from a specific thing. And so we're gaining so much traction and so many followers from leaning into those niches because people want to keep seeing that. So they follow you to keep getting that. And then you're also stuck with getting everything else that we post too. But they usually stick around for it. And then we get our metrics up in general. So it's just been really cool. It's been a challenge for me, but it's also been incredibly cool to see this kind of transition. So I just wanted to speak on that.
No, that's excellent advice. And someone just wrote in the chat, if you have to narrow your focus, what are the social media sites that are the must-have for newsrooms today? Leanna, what do you say to that?
YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. I think we have a little bit older audience on Facebook, and it's still a strong platform for us. But I think, those are three that we really are, we try to cover all our bases because it's important to get everybody. I think Angela has something to add as well.
Yeah, go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, I kind of just want to add on to what Maggie was saying and what Leanna was saying in regards to, resources and newsrooms being a lot thinner. Like during my time at ABC7, people around me were like, oh, this is like the least amount of people that they've had in a newsroom ever. And they also went through layoffs the last 2 years. And I do think that's like a big concern. And I think one of the things that can give you and me an edge is being able to write, be able to produce, be able to edit, be able to know what's going on in the world and knowing your audience. I think those are all skills that we can all have and apply to our roles. And so being able to have all of that makes you have more of an edge in your newsroom. And I think to also add on in terms of, I'm sorry, the previous question, like in terms of content even, like I think if you yourself are like a jack of all trades and are passionate about the content that you are creating, then other people would also respond to that well. So
great advice from the fellows as usual. All right, we are
Mike,
just about out of time.
Can I push for one answer?
You push away.
Okay. This is our dynamic friends. If we're dealing with one vertical platform, or truly just one platform, do we have one platform that we think, one digital platform that we think our newsroom should do first? Like number one is YouTube, and then number two is Instagram. Do we have a consensus on that? I think sometimes seeing three platforms, you're a little bit like, ugh.
Well, based on our survey, YouTube is number one, and you can do horizontal and vertical with YouTube Shorts. So I would say YouTube is what you should be focusing on the most, followed by Instagram and TikTok.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
You bet. I want to thank the Online News Association and everyone here today for your interest. Again, the QR code is up there. So if you have not downloaded our report, do so. Our website is chock full of information from all phases of our research, lots of things to watch and explore. And please follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram. Tag us, share your wins. We want to see what you're doing out there. We want to see what's working, what's not working, your challenges as we all navigate this digital news revolution. So please, thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a great one.
Thank you all so
much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.